Yeah, please.
Okay. Just give a symbol. Welcome. Welcome all to the fourth KLF Bhav Samvad from KLF Bhav Samvad from Bilingual Literature Festival. And thanks for the readers, the viewers, the intellectuals who have supported us last three webinars. We have seen the huge response from all types of readers, all types of viewers, and that has to do KLF webinar time to time. And today, the topic is very interesting, the South Asian literature, translations, and the future. Question comes in mind, is the South Asian literature confined to each country, its indigenous languages? So translation is the only way to share our literature. Now we are using the cyberspace, definitely thus. With the use of cyberspace, the South Asian literature has an even easier access to masses. And today, to discuss with this topic, we're having some brilliant speakers from different countries. We're having the senior member, Daya Desnaik sir, the bilingual novelist, poet, and journalist from Sri Lanka. We're having Aminur Rahman, the writer and poet, 40 books to his credit from Bangladesh. We're having Chandra Wangamam, welcome again, from Bhutan. He's a poet by heart, but a novelist and a children writer. So also we're having Prakash Suvedi sir from Nepal, who lives in Australia now, a very good academic, writer and translator. We're having Dr. Farud Gulsara, a doctor by profession and has interest for literature, having 2 books to his credit, very interesting books. And I'm the fan of one writer, Monidi Pasahu, is from my city, Bhubaneswar, India. And we follow her books going home in the rain. And she has edited also the best Asian short stories 2007. Now we'll have a great discussions now. Again, I welcome all the panelists and all the viewers. I hand over this to Daya Desnaik, sir. Thank you.
The mic. Yeah.
Mr. Daya, can you open your mic?
By this time, Daya sir to join. Aminur sir, you can start now and have a introductions of yourselves.
I think Mr. Daya is there. Still, it's unmute.
Aminur sir, you please start.
Okay. Actually, my name is Aminur Rahman. I'm writing poetry and the prose, not the novel and other things, but in the real, and I'm also the art critic. So last 35 years, I'm writing poetry in my own language and as well as in English also. My language, you know, it is a Bangla, the language of Tagore. So in this part of the world, Bangladesh is the only one country where the mother tongue is totally Bangla. And West Bengal, there's a majority of the West Bengal people is speaking in Bangla also. But the Bangla is cultured West Bengal and Bangladesh both. And the history of it is a history of 1,000 years of Bangla. I don't know why the reflection is there. Hello, can you hear my?
Yes, sir. It's rebouncing.
Okay, so 1,000 years of history of Bangla language, and in Bangladesh in 1952, in 1952, the mother for the mother tongue, we have sacrificed our life. It's 1952. That time it was in Pakistan, West Pakistan, East Pakistan, and that time the language supposed to be Urdu because of that Pakistan language is that one is in Urdu, and Father Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah wants Urdu has to be the language of our part of the world. So that time in 21st February, it was revolted in the university and all the places of Bangladesh, and we sacrificed our life, and that was the International Mother Language Day, the 21st February. We used to call it Shohid, Amar Shohid Karone, means it is a 21st martyrs, and those who have sacrificed their life for the language. It is only, I think, in the world, there's not many countries who sacrifice their life. But this is the only one country where they sacrifice only for the language. And subsequently, it is converted to the Liberation War in 1970. So from 71 to now till now, this is the Bangladesh, and our language is in Bangladesh. And we have a heritage of particularly when you consider the South Asian literature. In South Asia, I don't have any other poet other than poet Rabindranath Tagore got the Nobel Prize, and he writes. He used to write in Bangla. And Rabindranath Tagore has 3 houses in Bangladesh, and he spent his majority of life, means creative life, 10 years in Bangladesh in 1890 to 1899 or 99. So for 9 years or 10 years. So, and Shilaida, Patishar, and Shajatpur, he lived, and you remember his golden balls and all the creative, maximum creative, important creativity, he did it in Bangladesh that time.
I'm not getting the sound.
It's Nobel Prize share one social bank here to develop after got the Nobel Prize. So this is a strong bondage of the Bangla literature all over the world. And in Bangladesh, yes, mainly the poets from 50s who created the real voice for our language, and they created a solid base in Bangladesh, and in West Bengal also. The 50s is a very strong year. So from Bangla language, it is started with with the 50s poets. 50s in both to everywhere, even in front of the Nobel laureate and others. The truth is, the translation of Bangla language was not done properly to go to the international area. So I don't know. Yeah, the reason is we have a couple of translation is there, but in the international standard and the number, more poets are not represented by English. Means those who are writing in Bangla translated to English, it is not much. Those who are writing in English, that's fine. So this is one very critical situation, and I believe because I travel all over the world and attend a lot of poetry festival in the global area, at least 2025, from South America to Middle East to Africa to say in Asia, of course. So everywhere, South Asian representation is very poor. I'm saying it is in Sri Lanka, no. If it's just Maldives, absolutely not there. Afghanistan, a very little. Pakistan, few are novelists, not the poet. Because I met Ahmed Faraz and Kishore Nahid, all the good poets, as my friend. And though they are not in this world. But even though, I think Kamila Shamsi is only one novelist from Pakistan who is a renowned, very renowned bestseller author. And India, of course, India, there, there are few. But if you just consider Sri Lanka, yeah, Ashok is my friend, Ashok Ferry, and yeah, he's writing in novel. Yeah, so yes. So this the translation part of this word is mean the South Asia is not very good. So we have to actually, yeah, several times I raised this issue. We have to make a translation forum or translation pool. Those who are very good in translation, because of translation, yes, there are a lot of translation floating here and there. The quality of translation is very important, and quality of translation, and through the international publisher, going to through the international publishers. If you see the Random House and then Macmillan and others, they are producing the books, but problem is these books are not going to the international area. This actually rotating or floating in this area only, means the Indian market, and then Sri Lanka and little bit Bangladesh and Maldives and other countries also. So it's a Nepal also. So it is not that lucrative situation, or the very prospective market, those who are writing in or translating in English. So it's very segmented. So we have to look into it. This is the very crisis moment, and we have to be very serious and raised our voice to Mother Prashad Mire, and 3 years still he is active. He is still active, and recent world. But people, those who are writing 70 years, 80 years, still unprojected to the global area of South Asia. So we need, you have to find in your in Arab. So they know the language of Bangla or your Sinhalese or any other, the Maldivians and the Nepalese. To that we have to look into it, and I'm sure the learned peoples, those who are talking today, we can find some guidelines from that side. But this is true, and at the same time, when I just meet the regional poet of this area, this very it's not encouraging. We are actually happy with ourselves only. So we don't want to explore ourselves to the global. If you don't want to go to the global, it is very it is difficult. Of course, it is difficult. But even though we are little bit of country and other countries. Of course, it is very difficult in field, like the Shamsur Ramarai and the people. He's a very famous writer in India. But how many people knows him? You know, he's as big as any Nobel laureate. So I on the other day, few years back, it was few years back actually, I met the Derek Walcott in a global forum. So I asked him, what do you know about our literature, particularly our literature as well as the South Asian literature? He said, no, I don't know anything about it. I said, we know you. You means you are a Nobel laureate, but we know other Trinidad or any other very good for other people. But we don't have any good translation from you, means we. So that's why we didn't know you. Yes, this is actually is a valid point, because of we don't have much of, maybe one anthology of 12 poets or something is published and rotating in our area. So we have to actually think very seriously of our translation, because we are writing, we are giving our life, we are writing day and night, say 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, writing for poetry, writing for novel, writing for, but what is our exposure? And if exposure is not more, means your readers, means your circulation of your books will be less. So if we, unless or until we can trap the international market, even your people, those who are living in outside the country, means lot of Sri Lankan, lot of Bangladeshis, lot of Indians, they're living all over the world. Even in USA, in UK, there's a huge population. Should we trap this market also? But it is very difficult because of it, we are not. So unless or until, because of this, that was a very educated class, those who are living in outside, for sure, and they have interest for the literature. I'm sure some portion of that that market. So we have to think our circulation, otherwise it's very difficult to survive in this world. Yes, we are creative, so we are writing, but this is not only the one job. So we have to look into our other perspective to survive in this world. I think I'm okay. Can you hear me? I
Yeah.
can't hear you.
Because the mic is off.
Okay. Yeah. So can I speak a little bit more, or can I stop it now?
Your turn will come. Hello.
Okay. Yeah.
Dr. Yes, sir. Dr. Farooq, definitely he wants to share something on this context.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening from Kuala Lumpur. First, thank you so much for giving me the honor to join you in this August conference. Now, here in Malaysia, writers normally write in the local language, which is the Bahasa Malaysia, Malay language. Quite a proportion write in the Chinese language, Mandarin. Some write in Tamil, because most dominant Indian Tamils. So, and we have Tamil and thriving Tamil literature in Malaysia. We have Tamil radio station and Tamil newspapers. So, as far as Indian literature and Indian literary scene is concerned, there's a lot of Tamil work going on in Malaysia. And not to forget, there are a lot of new writers writing in English, and they are actually going places. We have writers who actually made it to the Man Bookers competition, and actually they are all over the world, just like a lot of Bangladeshis all over the world. Now, actually, it's quite amazing that we all from different corners of the world sitting down and talking, transcending all borders, and not fighting the lockdown and all, and still be able to talk. Well, it only shows how far the South Asian literature can go, and looks like it's going places, the way it is going right now. Now, first, let me tell you a little bit about how South Indian literature actually made it to our land. South Asian descent Indian literature made it to this part of the world. We can safely say that our civilization, our culture in Southeast Asia is actually made, it has its pillar in South Asian literature, South Asian civilization. Of course, it came here through military expansion, the Suryavarman Empire, and the Hindu civilization, Buddhist empires all came here, and they taught us to read Sanskrit, Tamil, and also they brought in their work in Pali language in the Buddhist scriptures. We are talking as that literature came here as early as maybe before Common Era or within the first century of time. Now, evidence of influence of South Asian literature in Malaysia and Indonesia and Southeast Asia is evident from, firstly, many of the traditional dances and performances that we can see even today. And one famous performance is called Wayang Kulit. Wayang Kulit is actually a traditional puppet shadow play, and the story is actually based on Ramayana and Mahabharata. Of course, some of the names have been altered, but generally Rama is still called Rama, Sita is still Sita. And there's another traditional sort of a dance type of dance called Mak-yong. It has its storylines based on the Jataka tales, of course, from India also. And we also have many folk tales, myths, legends, proverbs, romance tales, which were initially transmitted through oral traditions, and now in books and stories. And again, it comes from Ramayana and Mahabharata as well. So with such a vast influence in the early part of the Common Era, all the way up to 15th century, the South Indian literature made its way to our lands. However, from the 15th century onwards, there were a lot of influences from Europe, China, and the Arabic traders. They started pouring in their literature. And again, not to be outdone, the South Indian literature made its presence again, the second wave of spread, when the British brought in the workers from India, predominantly from South India and Punjab. South Indians were brought in mostly as laborers and clerks, and Punjabis were brought in as policemen and soldiers. And schools were started in their mother tongues, especially in Tamil. And there were a few Punjabi schools which have closed down long ago. And with the schools, with that teachings in Tamil came colorful literary scene, mainly in Tamil and Punjabi languages. Just about World War II, the literary work here mainly based on Indian independence. As you know, Subhash Chandra Bose came here, and many of the leaders came here to promote the independence, Indian independence, and a lot of people joined in that call. In the 60s, after our independence, which we got in 1957, radio and newspaper programs were spreading Tamil literature work. Now, it was no more about Indian independence, but rather they were concentrating on local issues about human development and other social issues. The umbilical cord with India slowly became detached. Then in the 70s, we had our own national education system where the emphasis was mainly on Malay language, Bahasa Malaysia. So the number of readers and the number of people who could read Indian scripts, Tamil scripts dwindled. And lately, we see a need to reintroduce this Indian literature back to the Malaysians. And we can see now a lot of translations going on. Lately, I came upon this translation on the Vikramaditya and Vedalam's tales. My friend Udaya Sankar had done a nice job translating the stories, and it's found in the market. As far as the future of South Asian literature in this region is concerned, I think there's nothing going to stop us. With the spread of the ease of digital world and communication online and all that, I think there's not going to. We don't even need a physical book now. You can bypass all this trans-border paperwork and all, and you can access. In fact, it's just at a click of your keyboard, you can access all types of literature, Tamil or Indian literature or English, Indian literature written in English. As they say, the world is your oyster. Yeah. I think I'll just stop for the time being. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Farooq. It's very nice information that Indian literature has so many impacts, and the Tamil language has also working on there. The stories and the folks of India is get accredited with there in Malaysia, in Indonesia. And so now I request Chador to share her views.
Mike.
Yeah. Hello all. I'm so glad that Bhutan too gets a voice to add onto the South Asian literature context today. Geographically speaking, I know Bhutan must have been included in the list, but if one tries to understand the history of Bhutan's literature, it is shrouded in mystery as much as Bhutan was still 1960s. I was listening to Aminur Rahman from Bangladesh and Mr. Farooq from Malaysia. Sorry. I have a very poor memory. So Mr. Farooq from Malaysia. And I gather from their presentation that South Asian literature, if we try to look at it, it is said to be even older than the Western civilization. Now, when I'm saying this, I'm referring to, the Vedas, the mythologies that has been written from long ago. But if you try to understand Bhutan and where it stands with its literature, and if you try to search for information online, there's very little information on Bhutan's literature as of now, because I think Bhutanese started writing very late. If I'm not mistaken, the South Asians, they began writing in English as recently as we can call it 200 years ago, but Bhutan, we started writing as about maybe just 50 years ago. But when I'm talking about things that were written 50 years ago, it was mostly the religious text, and definitely not something that would have been written in English or maybe even translated for that matter. So Bhutanese literature is very new. I must make it very clear from the very beginning. And now, before I venture to talk about my country's literature, I must make sure that I mention that we have always been an oral society. The Jataka tales that Mr. Farooq mentioned, I'm sure it came very late to our, although we are a Buddhist country, it came very late to our part of the world. And that's when Western education came in, and that's sometime in 1960s only. And our written, because we are today discussing about translation and how it has impacted the literature in our own country, I would like to stress on, out of the many genres that has been written, in the early 1990s, some of our writers, even today, we have just few countable number of writers who write. Out of that, many genres that has been written, I feel one of the popular genres that has been translated from our original local dialect to English, and because of which only it has gained the popularity among the people in Bhutan, because most of us, we would choose to read and write in English rather than in our national language or in our local dialects. So the first thing that comes to my mind, the first book that comes to my mind, or the genre that comes to my mind when I'm talking about this, is what we call as Loze. Loze is ballad. And I'm sure anybody, if they are listening to me live on Facebook or other social media handles, the first book that would come to their mind would be the Ballad of Pimi Sewang Tashi, which was written in 1996 by Dr. Karma Ura. Then the next book that would come to mind to the Bhutanese people is Dr. Sonam Kinga's Gelong Sumdar Tashi, which is again a translation of a popular ballad. Then started a new revolution, I would say. Writing, when it happens in anywhere, in any part of the world, we see that it comes in waves. Or maybe because in Bhutan we don't have sea, we just have our small rivers. So it has been, happening in a very slow manner. So starting from early 1990s only, we started writing seriously, writing our literature. And initially, mostly it were something that we would consider part of Bhutanese literature were books on history of Bhutan. Then, chronicling the work done by our great monarchs. Then came the phase when people started, accommodations started, writing down, translating this rich folklores into English. And now today, writers like me, I would dare to call myself a contemporary writer. I have been writing since 2012. This is my 8th year, and I'm 15 books old. Now we have opened ourselves up, and translation is not so much done as a part of literature event in our country, because most of the Bhutanese, we prefer to write in English, because English, I believe, is the language of the world. So I think, this is the situation, the current literary scenario in Bhutan. And later on, as we have the discussions, if anybody would like to know more about my country's literature, you can always ask me. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chador, for your beautiful informations that no indigenous literature is there. Rather, you prefer English as the literature. Now I request Prakash to share his views regarding this South Asian literature.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Kalinga Literature Festival, Devasisi, and your team for this opportunity. This is the positive aspect of technology that we are meeting here, but at the same time we lost our moderator due to some technical problem, it seems. Looks like there are so many topics we could talk about. As Remanji started with 3 major topics this discussion could go into. One is we are talking about writing and writing quality literature. And with it comes this issue of translation, so that people who speak language other than yours can also access what you have written. And then third, and equally important point is this marketing, publishing, making your writing books accessible to people all over the world. So they seem to have a very close relationship, and probably a detailed discussion on all of them will take a longer time. And as speakers before me have done, I'll try to present a very brief overview of Nepali literature and the translation scenario. And later on, if we have more time, I could go on to answer or discuss specific aspects of it. Similar to all the South Asian literature, Nepali literature is also quite old, I must say. It starts in the late 1700s, early 1800s. But what we nowadays call the first major work of Nepali literature actually was a work of translation. It was a work of translation from Sanskrit into Nepali by a poet called Bhanubhakta Acharya. So that's interesting, because we're talking about translation, and what we now consider as the first work of literature was actually a work of translation done in the 19th century. After that, during the 1940s, 50s, we have this period of early founding years of Nepali literature. From the 1960s to 90s, I would roughly call it the year of national literature. And with the political and socio-cultural changes that Nepal saw after 1990s, and even more so after 2006 and 7, now we are moving more into not just one language, one culture, one religion kind of literature, but a literature that is more inclusive and brings the voices of people speaking different languages, people belonging to different ethnicities, people following different religions, and people belonging to different geographical regions. For your information, though Nepal is a small country, it's ethnically, linguistically, religiously very diverse. We have more than 120 ethnic groups, more than 120 languages, and we have followers of every major religion of the world. But for a long time, what the state promoted was literature written in only one language, and literature basically talking about one socio-cultural civilization. So especially after the 1990s, we are opening up more, and especially after 2006-7 political transformation, when Nepal transformed from a monarchical system to a secular republic system. There are more voices coming in, voices from linguistic margins, voices from ethnic margins, voices from religious margins, and voices from, let's say, geographical margins are now gradually being heard. I mean, there's a long way to go until all of these diverse voices can be heard as loud and clear as the so-called mainstream voices. But at the same time, I'm glad to tell you that we have at least made a good start, and we can hope that this trend continues. That is more inclusive, more democratic, and more liberal, more welcoming to all these diverse voices. To briefly touch upon the topic of translation, yeah, as I told you right in the beginning, we started by translating from Sanskrit into what we now call the Nepali language, which was at that time called Parvati, or the Gorkha language. There was a phase in the middle when there was a lot of translation from the Western literature, especially from English. And especially from the 1990s, though there were attempts to translate Nepali literature for the rest of the world, there have been more concrete and more fruitful attempts, especially after the 80s and 90s onwards. As Aminur Rehmanji also highlighted in the beginning, yeah, there is work being done. There are some promising steps being taken, but at the same time, we are so far away from an ideal situation where even our best literature isn't available. Even the South Asian community, let's forget about the rest of the world. So probably we could initiate some kind of partnership, some kind of cooperation where we involve academics and writers from, let's say, our neighboring countries, and at least try to translate some of the best literature for our people. I think we could start by doing that. By, for instance, in Nepal, we could translate some good books from Bangladesh and from Bhutan, and you could do the same. So maybe we could some kind of cooperation, some kind of partnership as we move forward with this conversation. So I think I'll stop there for now, and if there is time remaining, we can talk more later on. Thank you.
Thanks, Prakash, for your valuable information and the analysis to go for a bigger scope to make South Asian literature into one literature. Now I'll request Moni Deepa to share her views on this context.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I thank Kalinga Literature Festival, the organizers, and Debashish Babu for this great idea of bringing us all together on a common technological platform. And then, let me start talking about South Asian literature, because India is very much a part of it. Indian literature is South Asian, and I'll talk about contemporary literature, because I read a lot of current books, and I see a lot of interesting changes in recent decades. Earlier, we had a lot of acclaimed writers, especially from India, who settled abroad and carved out their literary space. And their work spanned East and West. So we have had several such, and I'm sure there are writers from other countries who have done the same. And they wrote for half for the Western audience, though they may have written about their homeland. Now, from India and other countries as well, I'm seeing a new crop of talented writers who are winning literary honors at home and abroad. But the focus is now shifting towards homegrown voices. And they're writing in English. I'm seeing from other countries as well, writers writing in English directly. For instance, from Nepal, I have enjoyed some of the work of Manjushri Thapa. I really loved her novels. She writes in English. She is an expatriate to the best of my knowledge. But her stories have the touch of her homeland. She has not forgotten it. And among new writers, say even from Pakistan, Kamila Shamsi is very well established and well known. There are newer writers. Recently, I read a book by Shabanu Bilgrami, who's again an expatriate, but her novel, Those Children, she wrote it directly in English, and it's a very good one. It's set in her homeland in Pakistan. A bunch of kids come from abroad, they've lost their mother, and they find the crazy world, quite different from what they have grown up in. And these small children adjust and find affection. So now I'll talk about the literary award-winning and homegrown writers. Their stories are rooted in their own culture, and they're not making special allowances for foreign audiences anymore, like the earlier breed. So Indian authors, I'll give you an example, Usha K.R. and Janhavi Barua, who have recently published novels, have written very memorable narratives which are in English. And they've won a lot of national awards. They have been shortlisted and longlisted. So their work is obviously appealing abroad as well. So now they base their narratives, their entire story in their native Karnataka or Assam in India, which all of us Indians are not familiar with. And they write confidently in English. Is the sound okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm hearing some screeches. I hope you aren't. So they write very confidently in English about India, about their home in Bangalore or on the banks of the mighty Brahmaputra River in Assam. And it appeals. So they carry readers along on the clear flow of their stories. Human nature with its clashing ambitions, rivalries, and the binding ties of affection and friendship. All these things, all this interplay of human emotions, it has universal appeal. Whether it's set in Assam, whether it's set in Pakistan, or in Bangladesh or Nepal or Malaysia. So this appeal is coming out more, and they're not, they no longer see the need to offer apologetic footnotes on the Mekhala Sador worn by an Assamese bride, or about Ashwatha trees being venerated in Karnataka. I mean, we can all understand in the context, and they just go on writing, and the tale is such, it carries people on its wave. And it's true of many other writers. And as far as translations is concerned, English is linking the rich regional literature with the rest of the world, and English is also binding readers and writers who are writing within the region. Say Indian writers. Now I'm acquainted with a lot of work by other Indian writers because of the English translations, which are very good. Same for writing from other parts of Asia. So many writers are writing in English directly, and excellent translations are coming out. For example, now a book I really enjoyed, it stayed with me, was Eka Kurniawan's Man Tiger, which he's an Indonesian writer. And the English translation was available by an Indian publisher who published it, Speaking Tiger Books, which is where I got to read this book. So it's got a lot of folklore nuances. And it's set in a village in Indonesia, which I felt is so much like a, crazy, lively, madcap, full of loud busybodies village in India. So there's so much we have in common. But people have told me, people who have, read the original, that such a translation could not bring out all the nuances of the folklore traditions. But somebody like me who was not looking out for those lapses, I just read it as a fresh English book and I enjoyed it. So I'll give that credit to the translator. And then I will also talk about the regional writers going bilingual. There are enough writers in India, contemporary and very senior writers, who write very well in various Indian languages. And also sometimes they write very equally well in English. For example, Shanta Gokhale is a very well-established writer in Marathi. Now, she wrote a novel, Crowfall, in Marathi, which was appreciated in the original language, and she wrote her own translation in English, which I read because I do not know Marathi. And it was an excellent thing, and I'm glad that writers themselves are translating their own work. And again, Mridula Garg, who had recently come to Bhubaneswar, to the Kalinga Literary Festival, she's a very well-established writer in Hindi, a stalwart. But she chose to write her last email, her most recent novel, in English. So it is a trend I see, writing in various languages. And in Orissa, I've met a lot of writers who know English and Bangla equally well. Bangla is the neighboring state, West Bengal, and going on further to the east, to Bangladesh. So they like to read the original Bangla. I love to see that interest. And there are writers, I know Dr. Dipti Patnaik, she recently won an award for having translated Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay's Bengali novels into Odia. So she was invited by the Sharat Chandra's the Sahitya Parishad from Calcutta. And I have also been honored to meet Suprabha Ray, who is again a very stalwart writer in Odia, but she also translates into Bangla and she has written in Bangla as well. So these bilingual writers, I think, I'm seeing that they are equally talented in both languages. It gives me a lot of pleasure to see that. And I'm seeing this in other countries as well. That, spanning two countries, several countries, say Tamil is spoken in Malaysia, as Dr. Farooq told us. Or there's so many Nepali in India who also speak their own language at home, I'm sure, though they are very fluent in Hindi and English too. So Bangla, again, it's my mother tongue. Okay, it's also the language of Bangladesh, as Aminur Rahman just told us. I know Bangla very well. I like to read Bangla books. And that's, again, I've seen in a country like Singapore, which is multicultural. In fact, all of us are, I think. There are various languages in each of our countries. And all of us, at least the educated people, we are comfortable in English, which is why English works to link us, not only to the rest of the world, but within ourselves. So this writer spanning two countries, I can think of Jeremy Tiang of Singapore. He's a very well-established writer, and his collection of short stories, It Never Rains on National Day, has been much praised. So he's of Chinese origin, and he's from Singapore, and I think he's spending a lot of time abroad. Stories span all these cultures. He had given a very stunning story set in China. In 1995, there was a famine, which we knew very little about, but his story, 1995, which I included in my Best Asian Short Stories collection, it just had such a stunning impact about a famine in another country. And there's his story, National Day, in his collection, which is about a lot of migrant workers who have brought up Singapore. Now, when people from other countries visit Singapore, we see the beautiful buildings, the prosperity, the shopping, the sightseeing, and everything. But we do not see, they're hidden from public gaze, all these migrant workers who toil very much like the Indian migrants, whom we are all noticing now, thanks to the lockdown and the exodus. We are all realizing their plight. He has brought out their plight in that these people are hidden and they cannot celebrate National Day So they go to a far off island, and from a distance they admire the beautiful skyline of Singapore. And they say, look at that beautiful building. You know, we worked on it. Remember? But they're excluded from it. So these migrants, again, they're from other Asian countries. Some are Chinese, Sri Lanka, Indians also. So this cross-cultural thing extends to all strata of society. And I'm glad contemporary writers are seeing their stories as well, apart from the, say, elite or the privileged who have education, who have homes, about these people. So
Yes,
all
ma'am.
this is, yeah. So
Yeah,
all
no.
this I'm seeing is, can you hear me? Any
Yes, yes, ma'am.
problem? Okay, so I'd like to conclude here.
Yes, ma'am.
And yeah, so this is what I'm seeing, that we have a connection. And English and translations into English are connecting all of us. And we want to connect, it's happening beautifully. And internet is the way to go about it. It's the future. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable informations that in which part anything is written, it must be communicated to every part of South Asia, because we are living in different regions, but in one region, one place. So would I like to request Mr. Rehman again to give some plans, some ideas how to make translate and how to make all South Asian literature into one forum.
Yeah, exactly. If just see all the learned speakers, they are talking about the translations. Yeah, of course, English is the vehicle, and Mr. Moni Depasha, she said that rightly, because of nowadays those who are writing in English, they are the most privileged. I say on the other day in a Calcutta gathering, I said those who are writing in English, they are the privileged. But those who are not writing in English, that is the most important thing, because of vast, how many people. You just identified every country, maybe 3 4 3 4 3 4 at maximum. India, if you just India is a part of all these South Asian countries, so maximum 10 20 25 writers. And mind that those who are writing in novel, not a single poet is mentioned here who writes, whose writing is we are enlightened to read or something. All are the novelists, and because novel, the market is bigger and the translation is more in the novel. But those who are writing in other things, mainly the prose, the critical prose, and the poetry, particularly the poetry is a very strong vehicle of the literature. So those who are writing in poetry, they're the absolutely non-focus in the South Asian. That's why I told you. Yeah, say I met on the other day the Mother Prasad Gimire from Nepal, 103 years old man who's still writing. See, and is such a big, important poet of the South Asia. But how many people in the South Asia we know? We don't know. In Bangladesh, how many poets you know? Maybe one or two novelists, those who are writing in English. Only these people are. And India is of course, India is a big country. The language is, and there are lot of Indian English writers are there. But those who are writing in local language, only few. Those who are writing both the language, what Monidapa said and saw Mr. And other people say, those who are writing in both language, of course they are in focus. But those who are writing only one language, their mother tongue or the something, so they are not focused. And we should do something for that. What you said, Mr. Debashish, yes, we have to do something for this big cluster, those who are writing in their own languages, like Bangla, like
Yes,
Tamil, like other languages.
yes.
Yeah, and the Oriya, of course, is such
Yeah,
a
yes, definitely.
yeah, of course, yeah. See, when you go to the Orisha, there's a heritage and the literature, strong bondage and history of the literature. So
I'm a Odia writer also.
yeah, of course. And but those who are writing in English, they're privileged. But those who are not writing, so we have to do, because we have to do something. We have. I think what Mr. Prakash said. If you can make it, because of Mr. Farooq also said, because of in Malaysia, I know a lot of Malay poets. Those who are writing in Malay, particularly Ahmed Kamal Abdullah, Samad Said, and all the the Malay poets, important poets, those who are my friends, Siti Jainon, and all the people. So they're also facing the same problem of like Sahitisha because of the translation. Only few translations made from Malay literature also. I know Raja Rajashree Sitaraman, who translated my poem in Malay, from English. But those who are writing in English, they are always in a privilege in this world. But we have to make a pool of translators, those who really can translate both the language, English and other language. So if we can make a pool in this, particularly start with our South Asia, because we are focused in South Asia. Forget about other world. So we don't know about the in what is going on in Bhutan. So just little. What Chadar said is very rightly said. Only few things we know. Only Nepal, only few things we know. India maybe a little more because of their English translation is more. And Bangladesh, I don't understand. I don't know. Hardly few people knows few poets and the novelists. So we have to be very careful. We have to be very serious about it, because of time is passing, and if we just lost our old heritage, and our giant literatures to throw to the world. So we are really behind of our time. We have to do something, and I think the best way is every country, if we can make initiative, particularly the publisher to publisher, poet to poet, novelist to novelist, so we can make a bondage. I know Kamila Shamsi's mother very well. Muniza, maybe next time Muniza Shamsi, we can invite her in the discussion. She is a very literary person and a novelist. So Muniza can also give you suggestion from Pakistan. Kamila's mother. So Kamila is only, I told you earlier, so Kamila is very famous, what Muni Depa said also. But how many Pakistani writers we know? Only those who are writing in novel and in English. So those who are writing in Urdu, do we know any that much? Maybe Ahmed Faraz, and then other then Faiz Ahmed Faiz. That's a long history of. But what is going on in the recent time? We don't know anything, because of we have to do something. There's more interactions, more translations from the original to the English, because of English only. This is true. We don't know Urdu, we don't know Tamil, we don't know Oriya, but only one language we maybe know, that is the English in between. So there is no other way to translate into English and spread our literature through the South Asian countries as well as global.
Thank you, sir.
Can I
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. So can I ask Farooq sir for his view, whether it is a collective effort to be made, or it an individual, or from government organizations, how it can be possible in this short period of time?
I think it doesn't have to involve governments. It can be done at a local level between writers, and the people can communicate. We have so many festivals, literary festivals. Even in Malaysia, the famous Georgetown Literary Festival is held in once a year, every November. A lot of writers meet up and start ventures on translations and collaborations. So we should work on that. We shouldn't depend on government to help us in this way.
Thank you, sir, for this information. Because we are running short of time, let us going to conclude. So Chador, what you want to add on this matter?
No, I'll just hinge on to what Rahmanji was saying, that it is those writers who are writing in English who are, the privileged lot. I think this thought comes from as a result of the colonial history that many of our people who are here today in this forum, you share, other than Nepal and Bhutan, who have not been colonized. So you see, even though we do not have such history, when we started writing in English, when we started having our works translated into English, and when the works came out, we didn't have people, our readers, believing in us. They felt that if any books are written in English, it should come from outside. It has to be somebody who is, maybe Oxford educated or Cambridge educated, or maybe somebody whose mother tongue is English. So we didn't have this recognition and respect from our readers that Bhutanese could actually write in English. But over the years now, we are seeing this change. Even the way the writers are putting forth their writing, because we are now writing in English. So, initially when people started writing in English, and I must not forget to mention that one of our foremost writer, Amkunsang Choten, she was the first woman writer who started writing in English. Yes, one of her books, Circle of Karma, has been now translated into 13 different languages of the world.
Oh, great.
And she's being read widely. And I must also mention Mr. Gopilal Acharya, whose novel, I think that was, I seem to forget, Stone in My Heart, was actually long listed for Main Asian Literary Prize in 2009. So we have amazing writers from Bhutan who are now writing literature which is worthy of the world's readers. But having said that, when we initially started writing about Bhutan and presenting our story to the world, like Monidi Paji mentioned earlier, there always used to be, although it is being written in English originally, there was some kind of a translation work, because every part of our culture had to be explained. Even if it is in the form of a fiction, we are writing a story, there would be certain sections where we would have to, be apologetic about or depicted through our stories. Yes. But now I feel that there is no need for that. Using the medium of English, as many of us have been agreeing, I feel that we must put forth our literature so that our finds understanding and recognition in the global context.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chandra. Yes, for your valuable information you shared with us. Akash has, in his first discussion, shared so many things regarding translations. Now, I want to ask him concrete plan for translation.
Yeah, maybe brief 3 or 4 points.
Yes.
First, debate is English versus local language. I mean, we can't deny the importance of English. For instance, all of us have our own mother tongues, but here in this forum, we're using English to talk to each other. So, I mean, English is so important. But at the same time, I would say let's not forget the importance of translating into one of the national languages. For example, if I publish something in Nepal in English, if it is a very good selling book, it'll probably sell like 1,000 copies or 5,000 copies. But a good selling Nepali novel sells more than 50,000 copies. Or there are books in the recent times that have sold more than 100,000 copies. So if you really want to reach the bigger Nepali readers, it has to at some point get translated into Nepali. English isn't enough. So that's the first point I would like to highlight. The second thing is, in the name of translating into English or the bigger language, sometimes we seem to have forgotten this big readership in the neighborhood. So I think we shouldn't forget that fact. I mean, by saying that, I'm not undermining the importance of English at all, but there is this big audience that reads in languages other than English, and that is more interested in reading works from the South Asian region than probably any other readers in the rest of the world. So if there is a book from Bhutan available in Nepali, I'm sure a lot of Nepalese would be interested in reading, rather than a book from Spain translated into English. So while we are talking about highlighting the importance of translating, writing in English, let's also keep in mind that we have this big audience in the neighborhood who is reading in some other language. That's one thing quickly. The other thing probably is, I mean, translation, like literature, is a very political act. For instance, in 60s, 70s, we had a lot of literature being translated into Nepali, whereas so many amazing works from South Asia were not being translated. So that sort of, I mean, some kind of bigger political game is always there in both the act of writing and publishing as well as translating. We can't ignore that, but we probably should also look at the local languages and the importance of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Prakashji. Now, before concluding the sessions, I would like to request Monideepa to share her views in 2 lines regarding the translations.
Okay, translations, what Prakash ji has just said, I totally agree with. Because when it's written in your own mother tongue, when the translation is in your own mother tongue, it reaches out to a far vast, wider readership. So a lot of effort has to be made in that direction. Good English translations are coming out. I mean, I see Penguin India, then HarperCollins bringing out Indian works in English. But again, as he said, the Odia reader or the Bengali reader or the Tamil reader are not in such large numbers reading it. So the government they already are, the Sahitya Academy is there. They are bringing out translations from one Indian language into another, very good ones. And maybe apart from the government, even our own community efforts would also help, as Dr. Farooq Gulzara pointed out. We ourselves can try to reach out to private publishers, those who translate. So, yes, the importance of regional languages cannot be denied. But it is also English which is bringing many of us together easily.
True.
So
Exactly.
both are important. Thank you.
True. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, all speakers, Farooq ji, Prakash ji, Aminur ji, Chador ma'am, and Monideepa, for sharing your values and for sharing your time with our audiences. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll miss Daya.